welcome everyone. It always seems formal when I say hello. Welcome Ben and Naomi to the lockdown sessions. Thank you for joining in this conversation today. Ben Chappell, a performance consultant and coach, and ex-forces as well, right?
That's
and
right.
Naomi Rothwell-Boyd, founder of Tribe and Seek and a career coach and also consultant. So thank you for joining in these sessions where we like to reflect on learning and observations during lockdown. So Naomi, if I come to you first as a career coach, I know we were talking before, you're busy. What have you been observing and noticing during this period? What are some of your learnings around this topic?
Yeah, I think you know, like everyone, a lot of change and a lot of change that we're having to kind of react to quite quickly. But I think for me, and this is something that I've been talking to a lot of people about, is that I think a lot of people have had time to, particularly if they've been furloughed, you know, which is out off the back of quite a negative situation, has produced an opportunity for those to, you know, think about what next in, you know, in terms of their careers that looks like for them. So I think this time, particularly if you've been directly affected by the COVID situation, whether you personally or others around you have been affected, I think it's made people realise that life is very short and there are other things and opportunities out there for us. And your career needs to be more than just a 9 to 5 that you rock up and do every day. You come home, don't feel particularly happy about your day, don't feel particularly energized in the morning. And I think this time has been good for some people to really reflect on what is important to them moving forward, whether that's, you know, spending more time with their family or, you know, spending less time commuting in the car to work. Yeah, definitely hearing and seeing a lot more of that from my clients, definitely.
It does seem almost as if there's momentum towards people not wanting to just snap back into how things used to be. Are people making big changes, or is what you're seeing it's actually about just subtly understanding where they want to go, how they want to be? What do you kind of pick up?
I think a bit of both. I think it very much depends on, a lot of it actually depends on the financial situation I think that people are in, which is a tricky one. I'm hearing a lot of people just needing stability right now, and just retaining a job is just the highest priority. Just knowing that they can pay the mortgage, you know, they can, you know, feed their kids and have all those basic needs fulfilled. But I do think they're thinking longer term. I think people are saying, right now, this is the priority for me. I need to be able to pay my mortgage for the next 6 months. Having said that, I have reflected on this situation, and I do know that in, say, 12 months' time, I want to be in a very different place, and I want to be starting to put those, you know, those building blocks in place so that, you know, when we do come out of this, and we will come out of it, you know, I'm in a good position to start to consider that transition. You've then got others, on the other hand, who are, you know, not in such a difficult situation where they've got dependables, they've got a mortgage to pay, and they're saying, you know what, I've actually saved some money, or even, you know, some people have been given quite good redundancy packages. They're saying, how can I actually best use this to not just, you know, kind of wallow in the situation, which is a risk that people might do. And it is, you know, it's easy to kind of fall into that space, but how can I actually take advantage of this situation and make a big change now? That's, for some, that momentum is already there because they may not have a job. And so they are, you know, they need to find something, but they're, you know, they'd much rather find the right thing than just saying, I need to just jump into something just for the sake of it. So I'm seeing a couple of different trends.
It's quite interesting when you say that as well, because life is so ambiguous and uncertain right now that for people to make life decisions seems quite courageous.
Yeah, it's not easy, and you know, and I think there's, you know, whether you're making a career change in our current situation, or whether you're making a, you know, a career change, you know, 3 months, 4, 5, 6 months ago, it's a big thing to do. It's a difficult decision to make, particularly if you're looking to do something completely different, change industries, you know, do a completely different role. But I think people are feeling quite empowered. That I think that there's like this real sense of like people coming together. We can come through this, we can be stronger, we can, you know, we can beat this. And I think that that's coming through in all areas of our lives. I think a lot of people are saying, you know what, like life is so short, you know, if I don't make this change now, when am I going to make it? There's never a right time. And if, you know, it's a really challenging situation we're in, but I'm liking a lot of what I'm seeing from people, that they're saying, you know what, screw this, like I'm going to fight this, I'm going to, you know, I'm going to go bigger, I'm going to go better, and I'm going to make that change. And, you know, why not do it now? So yeah,
I think there's always that risk, isn't there, for people, that they think now's not the time, or I'll wait until I've got this. But you're
yeah,
right, if you wait for anything, it tends not to come. Things only come when you make action plans towards them and drive it. And that kind of, Ben, links, you're nodding empathically there, but kind of, I wonder if there's a link there with the world of performance consulting, and actually that kind of, how do you create high performance, not just in individuals, but in teams? What have you been picking up, especially with your masters and the kind of conversations you've been having?
Yeah, I think it moves on or links in very nicely. You know, Naomi's talking about the people within the business. I think the businesses are on the same lines. They are, because they are people as well, funnily enough, you know, they're having similar thoughts. And what we're trying to do, or I'm trying to do with businesses, is help that classic, what we're going to bring with us, you know. So the old way of doing things and what we're currently doing now, what are we going to start, stop, and continue doing? And it's just really, really simple, you know, just based on that, really. I think things like, hands have been forced in areas like remote working and flexibility and all this sort of stuff. So people, managers especially, have heard a couple of examples of managers who are adamant that remote working was never going to happen, and who entered into this begrudgingly and actually gone, oh, actually it's working. So, you know, one of the things another area I've been working in is just really sort of high level basics of creating clarity and communication. So, you know, and this again, I think links in nicely with what some businesses are trying to do in terms of stripping or revisiting their purpose and their vision and what they're trying to do as a business. And that's everything from completely pivoting to something new, to actually just going back to the basics. And you know, earlier when we were chatting, I was talking about these world-class basics, and you know, going back to the business in terms of things like leadership, those world-class basics of providing clarity, direction, and structure for people, so that you can allow them to do whatever, you know, to work how they want, when they want, and from wherever they want to. Because if they know where they're heading, where they're going, and how they're going to get there, then actually, hopefully, you can provide that environment and all the other things that we mentioned earlier, like psychological safety and trust, clear communication, frequent communication, making people feel involved. And actually, people will do a great job. You know, funnily enough, you know, we like to think, I'd like to think the best of people. You know, people don't get up in the morning and go to work and go, I'm going to do a crap job today.
Right.
People tend to want to, you know, there's that sort of humanistic approach. People want to do a good job. They want to grow. They want to satisfy their sort of needs, you know, explicitly or implicitly. So yeah, if you can provide that environment for them, and, you know, back to the sort of basics of what people need in order to fulfill that stuff, then that's what we're sort of helping people do. And like I said, in the master stuff that I'm doing is looking at that in professional rugby. So what does it take to create a high performance environment in elite rugby? And funnily enough, it's the same stuff that's coming out at the minute. I can see coming out, and things like psychological safety, trust, just the people, the human aspects of it. Caring has come out a lot. That word, you know, whether that's people take an individual interest in me, or the actual use of the word care. You know, people want to, rugby players and staff members want to feel like the club cares about them. That's what's been coming out from the high performance environments that I've been talking to as well. So yeah, it's all very transferable stuff.
I think we can learn a lot from sport. I spent 8 years working in professional sports in the early noughties. In fact, introduced to it by Roy Heddy, in fact, who was Clive Woodward's mental sort of fitness coach back in the early noughties before the World Cup winning squad. And I think in sports, we can learn so much because, of course, they rest so well, don't they? They work really hard, but then they rest. And I notice in the corporate world, maybe we don't rest so well. We work really hard, put in a 14-hour shift, and then we get up the following day and we crack on again. I'm just wondering, in a high-performance culture, where does rest come in, and how difficult is it when they're not necessarily elite sports people? There's not someone giving them a diet and a fitness regime and forcing them to go to bed at 8 o'clock each night so they're ready, to go to work the next day. How does that translate? Because I've often been concerned by the lack of fuel us mere mortals and non-elite sports people have when it comes to high performance.
Yeah, it's a good one on that world-class basics that it talks about. And one club that I was talking to, which could definitely be defined as high performance, they train one less day than most other clubs, because they train intensity. They say they get the job done and then have time off. So, there is that sort of dynamic range of peaks and troughs. And I think in the work environment, definitely there's time to think, just space. And I think that goes back to what Naomi was talking about. People have had that in terms of the wider career, but in the role, in the job, it's effective reflection, it's reflective practice, taking time to think. And a while ago, BBC4 had a couple of stints on this, a couple of shows by a guy called Oliver Berkman, and it was all about the art or the joy of doing nothing, or the joy of idleness, I think it was, or something like that. And he talks about things like booking out 15 minutes in the diary, where that is time that's booked out, and that you book it out as something important, so people can't just throw something on top of it. And then for 15 minutes, I suppose it links very nicely into mindfulness. It's just you do something either menial or just have some time to think, go for a walk, whatever it is. And I personally, that's where all my good ideas come from. It's out walking the dog or going for a run or whatever it is. So yeah, it's those world-class base, eating well, sleeping well, taking time to reflect. And I know they're all easier said than done a lot of the time. It's like, oh, just eat well or just sleep. It's and that's where that reflection comes in. It's, well, why can't I do things? What's stopping me do them? What will enable me to do them? What do I need to do to make them happen? Those sorts of things. Who can I talk to? Yeah.
There is that principle, isn't there? Eat, move, sleep, repeat. I think, I know that at CTG, we definitely do what I call lazy time, and everyone's allowed lazy time during the day. And that's not even to go for a walk or to do a mindful session. It might be just to surf on, for me, it would be going onto YouTube and going down a YouTube wormhole and just spending half an hour starting off watching some kind of program on sharks and finishing up on some 70s cartoon that I've stumbled across. Naomi, how do you get people, what advice do you give to people who are really wanting to start reflecting in this way, but they don't really know where to start because they do have responsibilities, they do have dependents, they do have a mortgage, they are in a career job, and they're not happy. But how do you break from the restriction of being somewhere where you feel responsible to carry on, but you have this inner desire to do something more? Where do you start with that? I mean,
and you mentioned it previously, like taking any sort of action is better than doing nothing. And I always encourage people, I think it's Simon Sinek he talks a lot about, he uses the brushing your teeth analogy. So it's that thing of, we don't just brush our teeth once a month and hope that our teeth are going to stay clean and we're going to have a healthy mouth forever. It's a repetitive thing. We create that time into our day, twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, and it just becomes habit. So, and it's the same thing. And I talk about fitness. I always liken kind of having a career coach to having a physical trainer. You have that person to help you create that time that holds you to account, to invest in yourself. And I'm not saying that everyone should invest in having a career coach, but really kind of finding and protecting that time and making it into a habit, whether that's 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, just creating that space that is just for you so that you can reflect. And, you know, and I completely agree with Ben that reflection time is so important to all of us, to think about what is and isn't working, what do I need to change to be happier in my current situation. And once you start to create those habits, they're much easier to keep than just saying, you know, I've got 10 minutes now, I'm going to invest that in just, you know, it could be even something simple like saying I need to look at my CV. Like actually just getting my CV into a good place will just make me feel better. Just, you know, but kind of creating that into a habit so that you're doing it, whether it's every day, whether it's every other day, I'd say is a really good place to start. And, you know, once you start it, it's really easy to keep doing it. It's when you just do it ad hoc, it's much harder for you to then kind of maintain that space for yourself.
Look, most neuroscience would say to us that to create a neuropathway habit in our brain, you've got to do things 4 to 21 times practically to create that. So there's no point having a conversation with yourself one day and then not revisiting it for 6 months because you're in a completely different space. And I hear what you say, that not everyone needs a career coach, but of course if they do, I'm sure you'd be quite happy for them to get in touch. Well. But with that, you know, when people do, how do you find them? What kind of space are they in? Are they confused? Are they searching for something? Are they missing something? What brings them to your door?
Do you know what? I'd say the biggest theme that I see is people seeking greater purpose from what they're doing. There's more themes that come from people, but I'd say that the biggest theme I see is, you know, I'd say I'm part of a generation now where we really question, you know, the world of work. We want more than just a salary. We want more than just, you know, the stability of having that job there. I think people in general are looking for something where they're giving back more. They're feeling a sense of, you know, impact. And yeah, I think on the whole, a lot of people fall into a career. They haven't necessarily been going down like a very clear path to being in a career that they've worked towards for a long time. You know, I'm certainly that person. Like I never had a career plan. I just sort of fell into a career and I've changed. This is my 3rd career now. And so I think a lot of people, you know, you get to that point where you've worked for, you know, however long it is, 5 years, 10 years, and you're realizing that actually this isn't right for me. I'm not getting that sense of fulfillment. I'm not energized by what I'm doing. There must be something more for me. I think a lot of people are questioning, you know, the fact that we're now going to be working until we're probably, I don't know, in our 70s,
90s, yeah,
maybe, I don't know, forever. And you know, the prospect, you know, if you're in your 20s now or 30 or even 40s, you know, however old you are, I think a lot of people are questioning, you know, I don't want to spend my 40 hours a week doing something that I'm, you know, not happy doing. And that affects everything. It affects your home life, it affects your well-being, it affects your mental health. And I would say on the whole, people are starting to question that, and they're seeking out help to break free from that mold and do something different.
I like that, because that's almost a natural pause point for the end of part 1, which is for me that kind of feeling of how do we help people to get to a point where they can align their passions with their talents. Because if you ask a 6-year-old what they want to be, how do they get from that to being a software engineer for a high-tech company working out of Reading? I'm not sure they know what that path looks like, but maybe when we come back in part 2, Ben will come to you first, and we'll look at actually how do we get that passion and talent, especially from a talent expert. How do we align them so it doesn't feel like work? Because that to me seems to be a bridge between, Naomi, your role as a career coach, and someone, Ben, like you, who sits in the world of the talent space. So maybe we'll pause it. I'll put a little bit of music to play through, and we'll come back for part 2. Cool. Okay, welcome back to part 2. And when we left off last time, Naomi, you had kind of given us this little fait accompli around kind of people looking for purpose. And Ben, I wanted to come to you almost straight away with this question around people's purpose and linking their passion and their talents as someone who sits in that kind of talent acquisition world. Where do we start with that? How can maybe leaders listening to this even be thinking about how do we tap into people's passions and their talents?
Yeah, it does flow on nicely from what Naomi was saying. I think again, it's always a model that I go back to with the psychological needs, I suppose, and the Damn Pink book, and I think I was mentioning it earlier, but the tapping into what people are getting out of their role, firstly. So yeah, you've got their talents and what they're good at. And in order to really bring that to the fore, I suppose that satisfies that sort of competence and being able to feel like you're good at what you do and you're growing and developing and going in the right direction. And then also, again, links with what's been going on at the moment in terms of remote working and increased levels of trust with people is that level of autonomy. So the relatedness bit, so belonging, I think that's taken a bit of a hit, but essentially it's almost going back to basics and finding out, individually, whether they're in the moment or before you even hire these people is, well, what do they need to get out of their work? What, in terms of jobs that they've really enjoyed in the past, for example, what is it that they've really enjoyed? Jobs that they really haven't enjoyed, what is it about those that they haven't enjoyed either? And linking in with that purpose and meaning, that's definitely, intrinsic in there. And I suppose the skills bit, the talent, links in massively in terms of, you've got the character bit first. Do people want to come and, are they getting what they need out of this role? And therefore, are they going to, we can probably assess their skills and their knowledge a little much easier than you can their sort of their character and their attitudes and mindsets and behaviours. So I suppose that's almost like the easy bit. And I've seen it done both ways. People, in terms of assessing people as they come into a role, it's like, is this the right person? Will they fit in? Can they do the job? Versus, firstly, we need to work out if they're able to do the job, and then will they fit in, and what are their values and behaviours like? So there's almost two ways around doing it. I don't think there's a right answer on either of those.
No, and Naomi, do you see the same in some of the coaching conversations that you had, that people actually are able to even understand what their passions and talents are? Is that a question people ask themselves, or is that when they need you to kind of ask the question for them?
Yeah, I think the latter. Is interesting hearing Ben speak. So I think obviously I'm working more at an individual level as opposed to an organisational level. So I'm almost that person that's helping them at that step prior to them applying for a job and coming into contact with that, a head of talent acquisition or a talent manager. So it's, the areas that, and I touched on some of this earlier as well, that are so important for people to kind of understand before they can get real clarity of, what job they should be doing, or if they're making a career transition, what that transition should look like for them, is that purpose and values piece is, super important. And I also, a bit of what Ben was saying about skills, I really encourage people to really drill down into what their super strengths are. If you know what your super strengths are, you're far more likely to be passionate about applying them. You're more likely to find a job that you can utilize those in. If you end up doing a job where you're using skills that aren't necessarily skills that are a big strength of yours, it's going to be much harder for you. You're not going to enjoy that role as much if you're not being having that opportunity to dial up the things that you are really good at. And I think in turn you are more likely to be passionate about something if you understand what your values are, what your purpose is, what your super strengths are, and also like where your interests lie as well. I always encourage people to think about, what are you really interested in? People should not be doing a job or a career if they're not interested in it, and passion comes from interest. So I always encourage people to really dig deep into all of those four things. If you don't spend time, exploring them, and not just at kind of a superficial level, really digging into kind of, what do those things mean to you? Where does it come from? And how can you apply them into a career? and a lot of people find that hard to do themselves, and hence, you know, that's why they do come to me, you know, a lot of them feeling very lost, quite fearful of making a change because they don't have that clarity. And so, yeah, I mean, building on what Ben says, you know, if I can help people at that earlier stage figure out those things around, you know, particularly around passion and, you know, what drives that, it's going to be much easier then for that talent person that's, you know, potentially hiring that person, because hopefully those things will come through and they would have already got that clarity around those things already.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Without the clarity, the challenge is there. But as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, you know, that's great for someone who's maybe considering their career somewhere between age 25 and 45. Then I'm thinking about those guys who spent 20 years in their career already. Maybe they haven't even ever asked the question about passions anymore, because they've got really super strong. Their super strength is the job that they do, and actually they hate it. But they've got a level of commitment with family, with a partner, with a mortgage, with the new car that they're leasing for 500 quid a month, and all these other things that are kind of laying them down, or laying heavy on them anyway. And actually, how do they unpick those questions? Because I know as a coach, Naomi, when I ask some of those questions, the first response that comes out is, one, not normally that lucid. You do have to dig deep, and people who have been in a career for 25 years, they're not used to doing that.
I think I'd jump in on that one, in that, you know, when you transition out of the military into what people call normal work, you go through a sort of a workshop, a 3-day workshop, which helps you look at your strengths and weaknesses and transferables and all these sorts of things. But I think that is a huge element that is missing, is you look at your transferable skills, but that doesn't mean that's what you want to do. You know, it's like you are really good at X, Y, and Z. But it's like, but I'm actually really bored of X, Y, and Z. I want to go do something different. And I think sometimes that's missed, and it is really hard because of the nature of a career change like that. But most time in people's first jobs on the outside, as they call it, they do have a bit more of a chance, and either they knowingly do this and decisively and purposely reflect on it, or they just go through a sort of implicit process of it, and they all of a sudden go, oh, hang on a minute, there's a difference between my transferable skills and what I actually want to do. So I was when I came out of the Marines, I made a conscious decision. I want to try and envisage try and envision what I'm going to be doing in 10 years and start working towards that now. But I know some people, they do, as you said, they do get, some can get stuck because they're like, well, what I really want to do pays me about 1/3 of my current salary. So
if you could get a job in it.
Exactly, yeah.
It's not even the pay, it's if you could actually find work.
That's it.
If I go back 25 years to when I first qualified, I wanted to be a photographic journalist. I didn't actually qualify in photojournalism, by the way, but that's what I really wanted to be. Now I have found a passion in photography and still love taking pictures of nature, but I never made any money from it, and that was fine. It just remained a passion and a mini talent that I wasn't paid for. And I wonder if there's this kind of almost acceptance and acknowledgement some of us have to go through, where we might have a real talent for something and actually we might not be that passionate over it, and we can still earn and create a good career for ourselves. And I don't know, I get caught, and Naomi, I'd be interested in your view here in dealing with people at those crossroad moments. How many of them do you notice are challenged by, what do I really want for me? Not even what do I want to do, but what do I want for me?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and also quite timely, because this morning I was actually doing a bit of a deep dive into looking at my demographics. So those people who are engaging, like literally just like number crunching, like looking at age groups, gender, you know, all of that, and what they're engaging with. I have 4 different products, and looking at who is engaging with what. And interestingly, those who are seeking that purpose piece, that values piece, trying to find something where they're actually, that's a bit more meaningful than just that like day-to-day hard grind, they are those that are in that, you know, that older age group that you were talking about. That's sort of like, I'd say late 30s to late 40s,
Mm-hmm.
who have got quite a well-established career already. They're earning good money. A lot of them are parents as well, so they've got that responsibility of having children. But interestingly, they are the ones that are actually seeking, you know, they're not seeking greater performance, they're not seeking more money, but they are seeking more greater purpose from what they're actually doing. And just, I mean, and you know, talking this through with a few people, you know, what I have seen, and this is a bit of a generalization, but there's quite often, I think, that thing of, yes, okay, I've worked for 10, 15, 20 years and I'm earning really good money. I've got a really good job. I've got a good job title. You know, I've got a lovely house and I can pay my mortgage and all those things. But I do think some people reach that ceiling, and I think they get to that point where they say, and I have worked with some of these people who have said, I'm 40, I've got a great job, I've got a family I need to support, but it's not enough. This isn't enough for me anymore. And interesting, I've heard a lot of people say, I don't actually need to earn as much as I'm earning. I could be a lot more comfortable earning less than I'm earning right now and still be paying those bills and those fixed costs that I've got. But actually, it might give me the opportunity to find something else, to try something different, will give me that greater sense of purpose. I don't, no one's, naive to the fact that isn't, it's more complicated than just saying, right, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go do something, I'm going to go save the world or do something completely different. But having said that, the trends that I'm seeing are that there are a lot of older people. I say older, they're still not old, right? They've still got lots of like working life ahead of them, but they have got to that point where they said, you know what, I'm tired of the grind. I'm tired of the commuting into London and never seeing my family. And why am I earning all this money? Like, what am I actually getting to do? I've got a house and I can go on holiday, but I don't have time to do it and enjoy any of those things because I'm working all the time. And I think people are questioning it. I think that there's a generation who are saying, this can't be everything. And I think that they are saying, I need to invest in myself. I need to do something for me because I can't carry this on for another 30 plus years potentially.
No.
However long we're going to be working for, like forever,
right.
Rate. So yeah.
But I think you're right, because I had a conversation with one of my team just the other day, an Italian living in Paris. And I was just asking him, I've stopped asking people, how are they? I'm asking them, what are they learning in the last week? And he actually said to me, we had a wonderful conversation about it. He said, actually, Brad, I've learned that I don't want to work this hard and I don't want to earn this much money. And my first response to him was, that sounds beautiful. Are you joking or is this a conversation? He's like, no, really. I'm loving it. I've got 2 young kids. I want to find out how we can carry on what we're doing, but me doing less. And I'm not worried about earning as much as I have been. And it was a lovely conversation. And we put some things down for him that actually made him feel that his purpose, which is more about his family and the values that he lives and espouses, were more important than him spending 4 days a week traveling around Europe, delivering workshops on emotional freedom techniques. He wanted to free himself up.
Yeah.
Turn it right round again. So, Naomi, do you think there's a particular reason why it's people that age? Like, is it just a case of it's that generation, or it takes them that long to get to a point where it suddenly clicks? Like, what's happened between leaving school and then?
I think it's a couple of things, and I'm kind of generalizing. I can't speak for everybody, but I think there's a couple of things there. So I think part of it is an experience thing. So there is research out there that shows that people, I guess it's that millennial population, maybe slightly older as well, are more inclined to be seeking out purpose. They are looking for a career that gives them more than just money, stability, you know, a 9 to 5 kind of structure. I think also it's an experience thing as well. So I think what I'm seeing and hearing from, you know, people I'm speaking to, and also the kind of data that I'm receiving as well, is that, you know, a lot of people don't necessarily career plan early on. And I'm certainly this person where I went through a very like standard kind of educational route where I went to school, I went to uni, I got a job. None of it all connected that well. I never really had any real career support that really delved into like who I was, like what my values were, what my purpose was at the age of whatever, like 18, 22, 23 when you graduate. But it's only when, and I this is true to me, and I know it is to a lot of other people as well, that it's only when you really start working and you get into that working environment where you're exposed to other people, you're exposed to cultures and different environments, that you really start to form some of those things around, you know, your values, your identity. These are the things that are important to me. These are the things I do and don't want from a career and life in general. And so I think it's when you get to that point of sort of mid to late 30s, maybe early 40s, where you've been working for 10, 15, 20 years, that, and you suddenly get to that point where other things become a priority. You're more likely to have a family. I think you're more likely to be in a very different situation to the situation that you were in when you're in your early 20s. And so I think on the whole, a lot of people are just getting to that point and questioning, is this it? Like, is this everything? You know, I think there just is that thing of my career is important. And it is important to a lot of people. It is part of your identity, but it can't be everything. And it does, for a lot of people, it has sort of taken over everything. And I think that's part of our generation as well, that, you know, we're very much driven to seek out your career, have a career, climb that career ladder. But I don't think it's as black and white as that anymore. And I've just read a book, interestingly, I might have referenced it before, called The Squiggly Career. And it really challenges that concept of moving up the career ladder, and actually instead we move, you know, around careers, we move different industries, we move, you know, to different types of businesses. And so I think we're being encouraged to question what we're doing more, and I think that experience feeds that. I think that by that point you've been working for so long, you've experienced a lot of different things, you've maybe moved careers a couple of times already, or you've moved to different organizations, and I think that a lot of that has informed what is and isn't important to you moving forward. And I think a lot of people at that age kind of category just get to that point of saying, is this it? You know, I need more than this, and it's not more money, and it's not more job stability, it's actually a healthier work-life balance, or, you know, something along those lines.
But that goes to the core of motivation. Ben, I'll come back to you because you've done so much work on this and research and, you know, theses on it. The fact is when I listen to Naomi talk, I think to myself, well, actually, as we understand our motivational drivers more, so we ask these questions more. I mean, you deal with motivation. You must have seen it yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we see the rise of the purpose-led organisation as well. Massive now, you know, lots of work on it from everyone from EY to, you know, all the big four and other, you know, thought leaders and all the rest of it. And it's massive. When people feel like they are, I suppose it's that combination of everything. It's not just, you know, you look at businesses, you know, B Corp certified and all these sorts of things. And you've got the UN Sustainable Development Goals and all the rest of it. And there was something barometer. I can't remember what the statistics specifically is, but of a number of people surveyed, about 25% of them wouldn't even consider, I think it was, maybe might even be more than that, working for a business who didn't have some sort of social aim or foundation. And I think, as well as that, it's funny how those sorts of businesses are also the businesses who will have flexible working, who will have a more relaxed atmosphere, more sociability. You know, is it a coincidence that you've got all those things wrapped up, or is it a case of just organisations, you know, you split them in two? You get the old world view of, you know, what Naomi's just been talking about in terms of the old corporate classic view. You know, you Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, triangle hierarchy, dictatorial command and control, all this sort of stuff, versus the new, networked or matrix organisations where people have got a complete freedom and autonomy, and you go as far to the end of the spectrum as, is it Frederick Laloux and reinventing work, and self-managing teams and all these sorts of things. But those companies also have, or the other way around, really strong social or sustainable goals as well.
I don't think it's any coincidence at all. I think a few years ago, I don't know if you guys came across a new version of working called holacracy, which got rid of job descriptions, and basically if the three of us were a team, we would decide which elements of what needed to be done we really loved doing and could do. So maybe, Ben, you were a whiz at putting decks together. So 2 days a week you'd be in the marketing team doing lots of sort of, programs for the marketing team. But actually you were an accountant by trade. So you spent 2 days a week in finance. And 1 day a week you advised at the C-level board to help them build their strategy plans. Meanwhile, Naomi loves her coaching, but she's also a marketing expert. So she sits in 3 different parts of the business. It's a total circular. It's not a flat structure, it's a circular structure. And there were companies like Walt Disney who were adopting this holacracy model in certain parts of Europe and Middle East and Africa to cater for this idea that people are too savvy now. We don't just want to leave school, go to college, get a degree, get a job, get promoted and, retire after, because no one stays in jobs that long. We're all looking for more from what we've got anyway. So it's not surprising to me that we're now looking at ourselves for wanting more. I know I have something called a purpose chair at home. And once a week I sit in my purpose chair and I either journal or I make some notes and questions about what I'm thinking or feeling. And it's this idea of, for me, how to maintain my level of inspiring. And I was just chatting to my nephew recently, and he was trying to create a website for his new brand. And I was asking him, what's your why? And it's been going backwards and forward while he's sort of playing on words. So I told him about my purpose chair. Anyway, so he's now got his own purpose chair. He sits in it every day. But he's come up with his, and he's 21, he'll be 22 in November, and his is to inspire hope through creativity. And he wants to change the world of music, and he doesn't want people to be going to stuffy classical music concerts. He's a composer and a conductor. He wants, and a painter, he wants people to come to listen to an event of music and paint while they're listening to the music, to see what creative juices flow when they're listening to the music. And, if he went to the Wigmore Hall or the Royal Albert Hall and asked them, could he do that? They'd look at him and kick him into touch. But he came up with this sitting in his purpose chair, which I'm happy for you to adopt if you want to find your own purpose chair.
Well, it makes me think of the throne of 1,000 thoughts, but that's something different.
In my head, I've just got, like the Big Brother chair in the diary room, or on Graham Norton's red chair, where if it's a rubbish thought, you just pull the lever and you drop backwards.
It definitely has to be a wingback, doesn't it?
Definitely. Yeah. But maybe this is what we've done. We are in an age of more awareness. And to both of your points, I kind of feel, when we started off this conversation 30, 40 minutes ago, we started with, what's our awareness been during lockdown? And it feels almost as if we're coming kind of full circle into actually what our generic learnings were as we looked out into the world actually has become quite specific. Because if I listen to both of you, I'm hearing that it's about a deeper awareness of self. And maybe that's what's driving the behaviors moving forward. So we don't just snap back into what it used to be like pre-COVID. Actually, the world can look different because we're all asking these questions now via coaches, Naomi, like you, talent interviewing, Ben, through people like you, and coaching with people like me. And maybe that's where we've got to. I don't know what your thoughts are as a kind of final pointer to this episode.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the case, and it's what the key thing is now. I think at the very basic level in order to continue on this, on this route and to continue the good things, what do we need to do? And it's like one thing. It's just have time to think, in the words of Nancy Klein, I suppose. But yeah, it's when can you do that and make sure that you keep on doing it? Because I think that's all that's happened. Like this B Core and purpose driven, and people being able to work flexibly anywhere has always been on the cards. This, because of the time that people have had to reflect over the lockdown, it's just expedited it, and through various other necessities like remote working. But yeah, I think it's always been coming. It's finally been sped up. So how do we keep the momentum going?
Naomi, what about you as a final thought? A tip from the top.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I'm not sure I can add much more to that, but I completely agree. I think, the COVID situation is has been an awful situation for so many people, but I think it has created opportunity for people as well. And that is time, like you said, Ben. I think now more so than ever, a lot of people have had more time to reflect, to experience again change, but change that maybe has been more beneficial for them. They've been at home more, they've been able to have that healthier work-life balance, and it's shown them that actually, my kids have benefited from having me around more, or I feel more energized from not spending 4 hours commuting in the car every day. And what it's meant is that I'm doing 4 hours of exercise a day. I'm sure people haven't gone to doing 4 hours of exercise a day, but
not yet.
no, but I hope a lot of that continues. I hope that shift continues. I hope people continue to reflect. I think, like Ben said, reflection is so important. Really thinking, that self-awareness piece is super important to making any sort of change. And it's rare that we get this time to spend really thinking about, what's important to us, what do I want to do moving forward. Anything is possible. Then this is what I would always say, anything is possible. You can make any change if you really want it. And, you've just got to, but you've got to create that for yourself as well. And when you get time like this, use it, because it's rare to get it. So.
Right, and it will be gone. And I found myself in coaching sessions asking people, what will you regret when this is all over that you didn't do? Because if you can answer that question, do it now. And I think to your point, Naomi, is a nice one to end on, because it is about take the time to reflect. And maybe what we can do, guys, is come back after the summer when we've moved again along this kind of recovery phase we're in, and see exactly where the three of us are with regards to these pointers, and see if the world really is creating that awareness and sustaining it.
Yeah,
definitely.
Love it. Guys, Ben, Naomi, thank you so much. We'll see you on the next episode.
Great.
Thanks, Brad.
Lovely. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.